Welcome to Mindful Drawing. I'm Rooks Fun, and I'll be your guide on this journey into mindfulness through the act of drawing. If you're new here, these are a guided meditation exercise that use drawing and that space of the page to connect internally with our breath, with our senses, with the motion of our body, and then externally through expression on a piece of paper or page. The drawing that comes out of it is unique to you, and you just follow along. You can watch as I draw, or just put it on and listen in the background and see where the exercise guides you. The techniques are all kind of meant to be simple. If you can hold a pencil or a pen and move it around, you can follow along, and you might find something interesting to your own way of engaging with the page as you do so. No warm-up this week. We'll jump right into the drawing, so find a fresh page in your sketchbook or a pad of paper or any blank sheets you may have handy. Get a pen or pencil. I think I'll use a bit of both this week. A pen to start, as I like the way the ink feels, and maybe a pencil later on, just to have a change of pace, to bring a new sensation after a space of deliberate practice, to loosen things up towards the end. Other than that, all you'll need is a space where you feel comfortable and a little time to practice some mindfulness. Let's draw together. I'm going to use a pen and a pencil today. We'll see how far we get, but there might be some opportunity for some shading, which you could do with either, but if you want to play or experiment, thick and thin, fast and slow could all be available options. We'll begin just with a little centering and entering into our space. Maybe close the eyes for a moment, let the hands come to rest on the paper in front of you, just to feel a little bit of that page you're going to work on. Fresh, perhaps, open, newly to the atmosphere, and ready to accept some medium of expression and drawing. Take a breath in to fill up some space and let it out at a natural exhalation cadence, not having to work for it to come in too far or out too fast or slow, just finding a space of awareness to the natural rhythm of your breath. And before we pick up that pen or pencil, we'll take in one nice deep breath, really fill out the lungs. Forward and back, left and right. You get to the apex, take a little bit more, and let it out heavy, just as it kind of decompresses our body into a little bit looser state. We can come into our space here, ready to follow the drawing along. And we'll begin with a series of points, some kind of natural or organic constellation emerging as we just follow a pattern. So no warm up, just diving in and begin just making some dots. You can fill them in with a series of revolutions. They can be circular dots or wobbly dots. The first few just jumping around. Their location and proximity, not important. Just getting comfortable with making them somewhere on that blank piece of paper. Maybe playing around a little bit with how you make them, clockwise, counterclockwise, empty, full. You can always bring them into alignment later in the drawing. And as we've got our hand moving a little now, we can take some time to bring awareness to how we make them, maybe slow down our pace. Take a breath in as we locate the next mark, and as that breath softly just flows out of us, start to notice how we're drawing, and marking its natural flow from your hand. I'm noticing a counterclockwise motion, my right hand. You could have some time here to play with which hand you draw with. Let's see if there's a difference, or just stick with what feels natural and comfortable, as that will drift from our foreground awareness. The number of perhaps revolutions to fill in the space of a dot to give it presence on the page. Is there a consistency you're finding? Breathing in to find location, And now beginning to, with that in-breath, to locate. Use the exhale to complete the action of the mark. And at first, just observing, does it flow evenly with the breath? Do you have to rush to complete the drawing of the dot? Or perhaps do you have to rush to complete the exhale before you finish drawing? Or maybe they find a nice equilibrium right off the bat, wherever you're at. Just breathing with it, recognizing it, giving your mind, your hand, and that body rhythm some space to synchronize on their own. Don't have to guide it too strongly. We'll settle into a rhythm that brings them together. Breathing in to find a new location and letting the out-breath complete an action on the paper. We'll follow this for several more breaths just to really establish that baseline, that chance for all the other things that may be happening in the morning or maybe ahead of us in the day to also synchronize with our rhythm here, now, drawing and observing the many things going on, present to us, mindful to our attention. Anything drifting around in our energy, finding its way into that same frequency of our breathing, of our expansion and contraction, of an act of marking, and of releasing the page on its own. And anytime you feel like it, you can just take a few breaths and let go of the action, come back to it. It might be nice to close the eyes for a couple of breaths to disengage them from the field forming on the paper. And when they reopen and reobserve, finding new entrance into the next space. Are there clusterings, evenness, regularity, or randomness? Letting the eyes begin to observe as we've established pace and presence with our awareness to the breath. We can expand that now to our visual sense, taking in the external. The eyes may want to guide the hand a little, and you can let them work together. Again, with your mind observing if there's any dialogue there. Does the eye draw you into a place of openness, of density? I find whatever naturally kind of occurred in following the breath, kind of working out and around, counterclockwise with the drawing of the dot, counterclockwise, generally expanding the field. Something that was happening before, outside of my awareness, now present. I can work into that space, or after observing it, Again, let it pass and see where it may go. The eyes tracking new opportunity, or even taking perhaps the next couple of minutes, now that we've established a pattern and a rhythm, to let the eyes rest from the field and let the natural rhythm you've observed and tracked continue on its own way, perhaps introducing a little chaos into our guidance, leaning into the space of the breath and the motion, rhythms of oscillation, of control, and of letting go. And if your eyes are closed, what do you begin to notice about the pacing? You could still be on the rhythm of breathing in to locate, exhaling to draw, or perhaps that's settled into just a more natural breath cadence for you, the hand and breath connected in a looser way. And bring some attention to that connection that's emerged. The attention, a practice, not needing to control, just to observe. I find a subtle overlap, the breath, a cue for change, moving in the little pause between in and out. It may be similar to physical exercise, where we breathe with the action, breathe to reset, do again. And as you're drawing, it's okay every once in a while to open the eyes to make sure you're still on the paper. Perhaps re-engage that visual field or stick a while with the internal sensation of the pen or pencil moving. Now we've been drawing for a while and may have developed quite a density, size to the field. So if you're approaching those edges or boundaries, you can open up the eyes again to see and guide. See what changed between the visually guided and the unseen. And notice the dots become a little wobblier, a little elongated. But interesting, the pattern of movement seems to become more regular. Something without the vision needing its own stability. And notice dots further away from my position, again becoming a little looser, a little more wiggly. Dots closer in, more precise as that arm extends and contracts. There's things to observe in that relationship between space, presence, our body's action, and the page. But we have a nice, rich, dense field, each unique to how you begin the drawing and how you follow your entrance into that space of awareness and mindfulness. Now, can we explore this field as a given territory, to do some mapping, some walks through it, connecting dots, Taking a few breaths to observe, and then settling in on a place to begin, some point in the interior and the exterior, wherever you're drawn to, and begin walking the line, connecting one dot to the next. Little constellations working across the page. And as you draw this new motion, the line, changing things up for our hand, we can enter into its motion through our breath, breathing in along a line, breathing out along a line. A short pit stop at every point, at the apex or the trough of the breath. Because the dots may be arbitrarily spaced around, we bring our attention to the speed of movement, the speed of breath again. Do we hurry up between short, long distances? Or slow down to an evenness, guided? If you reach an ending point, finding a new beginning and starting again to track through the field. Perhaps as you're wandering, your eyes begin to find patterns, or just the closest neighbor. In the direction of motion comfortable to your hand. An in and out rhythm, a tracking through the marks that came before. As you feel more comfortable with the motion through the drawing, let the breath drift to the background, into its, again, stasis with the body. Coming back to it if we ever feel rushed or stuck, letting it be just what the body needs. We can spend a few quiet moments exploring the map here on the page, finding sequences, and just drawing with the space we've created, see where it might take us. Density begins to increase as we track many paths. You may start to observe some things. You overlap, connect, cross-link through the field. Things begin to slowly resolve to a tessellation, a triangular pattern, the most simple way to connect a net or graph like this starts to take hold. We can begin to fill that in, or perhaps you're working at more complex overlaps between points and finding other shapes. But here I'm going to begin completing some of the shapes into triangles, creating a grid or a network. Spending some time with the eyes and how they read the patterns, or their directions, local sequences or connections that you can reinforce, perhaps new lines of trajectory that emerge for a while and then fade into the background, bifurcate, converge. What you begin to see here in the growing complexity of connections. Starting to create a network of interconnected joints and lines, tessellating the subdivision of the page. Connecting all the dots into a spatial pattern. And then with something like this, it could be triangles as the smallest unit, squares, hexagons, any kind of way of mapping we could explore. Whatever you've found in yours, feel free to follow that along. But I begin to notice in the practice is an interesting opportunity at the edges. How much is connected? How much does the figure close itself in to a shape or leave open edges? And what can we begin to explore with that as a creative finishing out of the figure emergent from the field? Little nooks, undulations, finding a place eventually of filling in and completion, perhaps a few anomalies left untriangulated, an opportunity to enter into the drawing, make something stand out, a hole in the net. A singularity emerging from complexity, or just a shape between points and lines. What do you find in your mapped network? And we could take a couple of minutes at the end of kind of redrawing again with what's now emerged from these multiple layers of conditions happening, finding spots we missed, places of potential interface, or completing in the grid, whatever feels right. I think I may move to a pencil just for a minute or two we have left to bring some shading to what I've found. Just a little faster motion with the hand, something to begin transitioning from the space of the practice to more open engagement with the world we have around us. a change in medium, bringing back new awareness to how our hand moves, how the paper feels, reopening the senses a little bit. And as we do these last few explorations and open that sense of touch and engagement with the page, you can also expand that and come to some of our other senses. What do you smell in the air, in the space that you're in? The sun has begun heating the room behind me through the window, and there's a kind of smell of heat, of materials warming, of glass. Things like the wood or the natural materials reacting to a change in temperature. That temperature also open to our other senses. Is it warm or cold around you? Is it temperate or unnoticed? Are there slight breezes or currents flowing across the hairs of the body? Just having some room to notice that subtlety while our mind's a little distracted in the act of drawing, giving it something to do to give us some space to listen. What do you hear in the space around you? If you have headphones on, is it a quiet muting? Are there birds, trucks, cars, the wind? A little cataloging with the senses. The eyes may begin to pick up changes in light, or look around the room a little bit just to re-engage, look far from this close focus across the way, out the window. And bring them all together a little bit. Smell, taste, hearing, feeling, seeing. And use that influx of perception as a chance to exit out of the space of the drawing. Oop, looks like my camera died there. That's okay, I can still talk. And come into a few final breaths in that space of new awareness. And prepare yourself to enter into the rest of your day. Welcome back into the space of awareness in the world, space of your senses, establishing your presence, a space now open to observation of what you created there on the page. Did you connect all the dots? Did you find more rigid, triangular shapes, more flexible, open shapes? And how did you bring some emphasis, some uniqueness, some of your own creativity to those shapes? Spend a moment maybe with the drawing, observing it, thinking about what it inspires in you or influences in you, and then put it away. You can always revisit these exercises, do your own guided kind of doodle or practice. It can take 2 minutes or 25, whatever you have available to you at a time where you just want to spend a little presence, connecting internally with your breath, giving yourself that harmonizing rhythm, and then using that space of awareness and creativity to re-engage with whatever you're doing. I hope you found the exercise interesting, perhaps fun, or at least a little inspiring. If you did, please share it with your friends, give it a thumbs up below, and consider subscribing for new episodes every week, generally posted Wednesday morning, or you can join us live through Mindful Pratt and their Mindful Drop-ins every Tuesday at 9 a.m. I also host these on Twitch. You can find it at Rooks' Fun if you want to follow along there. Whatever this exercise has inspired in you or brought to your attention and expression, I hope it takes you somewhere creative for the rest of your day or evening. Thank you for joining. Draw well.